Already yesterday I talked about the importance of mindfulness, how mindfulness not only gives us more focus, more awareness in our daily life, but also more freedom and creativity. And finally, it can even help us to develop more wisdom and develop a more ethical life. Actually, we can practice mindfulness in our daily life, in every kind of activity that we do. But usually it's recommended to start off with activities that you find is most easy for you. And that is, for example, many people find that it's easy for them to practice being at the center. For example, doing chanting, for those people who like to do chanting, or also for those, some people they like to also meditate while they are walking, doing a stroll, and that is also another example. So there may be several activities which are very helpful and good for our mindfulness and meditation, but others are maybe more difficult. And even just meditating every day will also have another effect on our daily practice, our mindfulness in our daily life as well. It has a feedback in it. Now let's talk a bit more about self-insight. I already mentioned to you that in Buddhism we have we have three important aspects of the Buddhist teaching. The first one is the training of ethical conduct, or how you lead your life, ethically speaking. The second one is the training of concentration, which involves mindfulness, meditation, and also your effort to develop good habits and quit any bad habits that you might have. That then leads us to more wisdom. More clarity of mind gives you more wisdom. And then when you have more wisdom, you can also make better choices in life. So this is like a circle. You may have heard about the Eightfold Path, which is considered one of the basic tenets of Buddhism, the way to practice Buddhism through the Eightfold Path. But this is actually a short summary of the Eightfold Path. These are known as the three trainings. Now, when we are developing more meditation, more concentration, more mindfulness through this retreat, we might want to take a look at how we can help to make the link between the training of concentration on the one hand and the training of wisdom or insight on the other hand. To understand that link, it's important that we take a look a little bit about one of the important teachings on Buddhism, that is our focus on ourselves. It's said sometimes that Buddhism is a bit selfish or a bit egotistic in that we focus only on ourselves, but that's actually a misunderstanding. But we are emphasizing self-training. Even when we talk about how to do good to others, we emphasize how that can help us to train ourselves. This is very important in Buddhism. And why is that? Because in Buddhism we think of life as a series. We think of life not just this life, but many lives. There is future and there's a past. Before we were born, there was a past, and after we pass away from this life, there is a next life. And throughout many lives, we train ourselves, we develop ourselves. So, whether you believe in that or not, one thing that is a fact is that we are all going to leave this world alone, without anything to take with us, and without anyone to take with us. So we cannot actually, if you think of it that way, the real thing that is what really matters in life is those good things that you have done in your life, that you feel has given you some insight, given you some treasure, some character that you can take with you in your life. The things you have learned, the things that are important that you have learned about life and about yourself, and that you can take with you. And everything else you cannot. Right? There's a story about that, actually. And there was a story about a man who had more than one wife. And they say that he was terminally ill, he's going to die. And so he decided to, when he was going to die, that he wanted to take his wife with him in death. Which was, of course, this is a symbolical story. And he asked his first wife about that, who he liked most. And his first wife, she said, "No, I cannot do that. I won't go with you when you die. I'm very sad. It's maybe sad that you have to die, but I will not go with you." And then when he was very sad about that. She even said that if he was going to die, then she would immediately move to marry another husband. So that was a bit of a sad chapter in his life. Then he went, but he had more than one wife. So the second wife, he asked, the second wife was a bit more positive. Seems, well, she also was not interested to follow him along in death. But at least she didn't decide to marry another husband, so that was positive to some extent. And the third wife, he had a third wife as well. And she was a little bit more positive. Actually, he didn't appreciate her that much as the first two. But she actually said, "Well, I cannot go with you in death, but at least I can stay with you to the last moment." Well, that's not bad. That's a little better. But then he still felt, I should not die alone. I should have a wife that can go with me in death. And then he went to his fourth wife. But this wife he never took care of. He never really was interested in her. He thought, well, it just seems like the sort of wife that he didn't really, maybe she wasn't beautiful, or maybe she wasn't attractive to him. He really didn't really pay much attention to her, but she was always there for him. But he didn't realize that. And she said, "Okay, I will go with you in death." What is the meaning of this story? The meaning of this story is that all of us in life actually have these four persons in our life. The first wife means your belongings. You have heard the story before. The first wife is your belongings that you have. When you die from this world, they will go to another person. So the same with the first wife. As soon as she knew that he was going to die, she remarried. So in the same way, our possessions will go to another person. Whether we have thought about that or not, that's just the nature of life. Or things, you cannot take them into our grave. The second wife is our position in life, our honor, the things that is our reputation, even that we cannot take with us. Actually, you could say that, well, it's very important what people say about you when you die. But still, it's something you cannot take with you. It's just there sitting. People will speak about it for a while, and then after that, you will speak about something with someone else. You may not be the wife that remarries, but still cannot really be that valuable to the last moment of our life. Most people, when they pass away from this world, in the last moments of their life, they do not ask about, they do not regret whether maybe I should have worked harder or something like that. Usually they regret that they didn't do the things that were most important in their life. So the third wife is who? The third wife who went along to the last moment of his life but couldn't go with him.
Thoughts and memories?
Your body?
Our friends that are really our friends. A friend indeed. What is a friend indeed? Is a friend in need. Yeah. So if we have a problem, then they stay with us. They do not avoid the problem. They are ready to help us. Those are the real friends. So but even our friends, we cannot take with us. And the fourth wife is the good deeds that we have done in our life, the good character we have, the good habits we have developed. Those go with us in life, in death. According to Buddhism, those are a real treasure of life that we can take with us in the next. Well, that's a very serious topic, isn't it? But the point of this is to say that actually all of us will one day, realize that there is a certain solitude about life itself, the way we were born and the way we pass away from this world. But that's why it's important that we learn to focus our attention and look at ourselves often and reflect on ourselves. Because finally, the only person that can really help us in our lives, that we can really rely on, is ourselves. Not even there is no real fourth wife that can help us. There is only the symbolical fourth wife, that is the good deeds and character that we have done. So, normally, however, we are used to focus our attention outwards since we were born. Because of the structure of our skeleton, our eyes are pointing outwards. We are used to look outwards and study about a lot of things around us. But we are not so used to study about ourselves. And we go to school since we are a kid. There is not much attention on studying about yourself and understanding yourself. Although these days there is more attention, more awareness about training children to learn about mindfulness, training children to be more aware. And there have even been some people like the American Congressman Tim Ryan, who wrote a book about how mindfulness could improve the American spirit. I made the joke about that 2 days ago, but actually that is actually quite good, that he made that a point. Whether there is some political agenda about that, I don't know, but the point is that somebody is saying it. That's good. So we might have a future that the children that grow up in school will be more interested in learning and about themselves and having more mindfulness and awareness of themselves. Why is that important? Because when we look inside, we can become more aware of our habitual patterns and improve upon them, our habits that we have. We are used to our habits just like a fish is to the water. This is a comparison of the Buddha. He says just like a fish in the water it's very used to its habits, very used to its character, the things it does. But when you remove the fish out of the water, it suddenly realizes what it's missing, and it will try to squirm, it will try to struggle back to go into the water. In the same way, we are not usually aware of our own habits, just like a fish is not aware that he's swimming in the water until you take the fish out. In the same way, when we first maybe haven't learned about meditation yet, you may have the feeling, well, it's not so, maybe it's not so hard, you just close your eyes for a while, that's all. But once you close your eyes, oh, there's so many thoughts, I didn't even know I had that many thoughts. That's because we are now taking the fish out of the water. So once you are going to change a habit in your life, there will always be some struggle. Did some of you have it's not a very interesting question for some people, but did some of you have take a, what do you call it in English, like a good intention with the new year? Did anyone have any New Year's intentions?
New Year's.
New Year's resolution. Yeah. Did he? Or is that a secret? Yes, please.
Depends how long it lasts.
Oh, okay. But you had, the important is you had those resolutions.
Yeah. Lose weight. I can share that with you. That's not work.
Okay.
Yeah. Give up smoking, but I didn't smoke. That's that worked.
But you want you want to
I'll give up that one.
you want to continue giving up that. That's good.
Exactly.
That's good. So also
I knew that was going to work.
So tell other people about it as well. No, but whenever we start to quit a habit, there will be a struggle inside of our mind. That's why meditation is so valuable. That we can see that struggle. You can learn, oh well, how can we deal with that? And how can we find more inspiration to develop our good habits and to overcome our bad habits? The importance, to illustrate the importance of self-reflection in Buddhism, there is a story of Venerable Rahula. Venerable Rahula was the son of the Buddha. Maybe some of you do not know that, but the Buddha actually had a son before he became a monk. But he was that son later on. The Venerable, the Buddha went back to his hometown, and he was able to convey to his son that he would like him to be a novice. In Buddhism, we call a monk a child that lives in a monastery. We call a novice. However, this Rahula, he was you could say that it may be very easy for someone to ordain and be the son of the leader of that spiritual community, because no one dares to say anything, no one dares to commend anything, no one dares to criticize him. But he wasn't like that. He was not the sort of person, well, I have a father who is the Buddha and no one can say anything to me. Actually, he had a very good habit. That every morning he woke up, he would grab some sand and throw it in the air, and he would make a resolution that today may I meet as many good advice, may I obtain as many good advice, words of advice, meet as many good teachers as there are sand in this air, that I'm throwing in the sand, in the air. That's where he was very known to be very eager in training himself. And this is not just coming out of nothing. It's because the Buddha often would teach him to reflect on himself from a young age. We often think that children are not used to reflect on themselves. But it depends how we train our children. And the Buddha, he said, if you'd like to become a wise monk, you have to think about what is a mirror for, how do we use a mirror. In the same way, it's important that we reflect on ourselves, that we understand ourselves. Sometimes even the teaching of the Buddha itself is called the mirror, a mirror to use to reflect on yourself, understand yourself. He also said that every wise person in the past, present and future has always been those people who have reflected themselves. One way that we can use self-reflection and build it as a habit in our daily life is by keeping a diary. When you do a monk's training, when in the first years of my monkhood, we were asked also to keep a diary. And I still do to today. I do not write every day, but as much as I can. Sometimes just a few words, some things we have learned that day. These days there is Twitter. Some people use Twitter. I'm quite confused as to how Twitter works, but it's said that it's very common for people. These days it's very common, especially for religious figures, to use Twitter. With Pope Francis leading this new custom. Anyway, the reason why I mention that shows that how important it is, how many people can learn from just the reflection a person has every day. Some people can gain a lot, be inspired a lot, but just by a few reflections that a person has every day. So a diary can be, first of all, a teacher to yourself, and even a teacher to others. Reflections that you have every day. And it is also good to notice that when we write a diary, maybe when you think of the word diary, you might have thought of something we have written once when we were a kid and we used to write all the bad things that were happening or something like that. So it's important that we understand that writing a diary is not just venting what all the bad feelings you have or something. Oh, today my dad said this or that. It's actually something to write about, something which inspires you and what makes you think. Or to write about those things that in times of difficulty, might help you to go through that. In fact, the diary can work so well that if we go back to it later on, we might even find that it can teach us in times when we get stuck. Did you remember from the life of the Buddha that there was a moment before he became the Buddha that he, you could say, got stuck or came to a crisis in his life in which he was going to decide whether he was going to continue with self-torture. And then he came to the conclusion, I'm going to quit this practice and focus on meditation inwards. And this choice he made on the basis of a memory when he was a kid, when he was a child, when he was meditating under a tree and had a very good inner experience, which he believed might be the key, might be the path to enlightenment. So sometimes when we are stuck into some pattern of thinking or pattern of doing, it's very good if you have some reflection from the past that can help you. That's why a diary can be like a teacher, not only in the present moment, but also in your future. You can look back and see, how did I solve that particular problem at that time? And maybe that way, that method, that insight, you can use again. That's why our vice abbot, who was a very good teacher, and in fact also our abbot, often emphasized the importance of keeping a diary. in our Vice Abbot, he said that even the worst kind of people in the world, if they have hurt a lot of people or something, if they still keep a diary and have self-reflection in their life, there still is a chance for them to be, there's always there can be a bright future for someone who keeps self-reflection alive in his life. Well, that's a kind of a statement in general. But self-reflection can be a very powerful tool to find transformation and development in your life. To make it more specific, diary can also be used for a particular purpose. For example, meditation. You can notice that we have recommended you several times to write down your meditation experience. That is not only for our own feedback, so we know how you felt about the meditation teaching here, but it's also very good for yourself, most of all. These are some examples of headings you might want to use when you, or not headings, but aspects you might want to write about when you're keeping a meditation diary or a meditation journal. First of all, it's important to write about the feeling. That's most important in meditation. Meditation is, after all, not just something intellectual, or it may not even be that important at all, the intellectual part. It's most important how we felt. If we felt still, happy, content, that's a good sign. We might also talk about the meditation object, or the thing that we visualized, or the thing that we perceived at the center, or sensed at the center. Some people like to draw. That's actually quite creative and can help us sometimes to record certain experiences, or to make a draft of certain experiences that is difficult to describe in words. You might have felt that sometimes when we meditate, it's not like this, it's also not like this, it's like, I don't know how to say it. Sometimes we just write it, we just make a drawing of it. It's important to emphasize the positive experiences. So some people, when I ask them, how was your meditation? And not so much in this group, but in previous groups that I had, previous retreat groups. Some people, they talk for hours about all the things that go wrong in their meditation, and then finally at the end it turns out they actually had a very good meditation experience, very positive, but they're just very focused on the problems. So it's important to emphasize the positive experiences. But suppose we also keep our journal at home, a meditation journal. Some people then ask me, should I keep a journal even when my meditation doesn't seem to progress? The answer is that, do you think a tree is still growing when you look at it every day? And the answer to that, of course, is a tree always grows. It's just that we do not notice when we look at it every day. So it's important to give yourself some time. But by keeping a journal, you actually learn to become more aware of the small steps that can help you to make progress. So if you are noticing, if you are meditating and you might feel that you are distracted for some time, you might just write down about how long this time were you able to find stillness and you felt you were really here. And then you make a note of that. The next time you can make a note of, and it may have been longer or it may have been shorter, but there is something to watch for, to look at. I know one day an older monk, I was sitting in meditation with him, and the abbot, he sometimes comes to visit monks when they meditate, the abbot of in Thailand, in a temple. Some people say he's very difficult to meet or something like that, but that's actually not true. That's just what people say, but it's not true. And we actually we're sitting in meditation with about 20 monks at that time, and he came to visit. He does that sporadically, he does that now and then. And we didn't know that in advance that he was coming. And then he asked everyone, how was your experience? And I remember one older monk who was very in pain, and his health wasn't that good because he ordained in old age, and before that he had worked hard all his life. And that monk, he said that actually he could find relaxation, but he couldn't go beyond relaxation. He was just relaxed. Instead of saying, well, then let's hear it from the next person or something like that. Our abbot actually wasn't like that. He said, and how much, what time was it relaxed for you? I mean, was it in the beginning? Was it at the end? You can take notice of that. And maybe this time it was about this period, maybe next time is a little longer. You can take notice of that. It's important. Just like any experience is valuable. He didn't look down and say, well, maybe the next person can tell something better or something. No, he didn't. He really gave attention to that experience. So a journal in a way is very inspiring because it can make us notice the little steps of progress. Or even if we have very interesting or very inspiring experiences in our meditation, we feel very good, a meditation journal can keep us aware and can help us to always also be aware of what method we are using in meditation, because very often we remember just the experiences in meditation. Oh, I just felt very nice, and then this happened and that happened, but you forgot how you got there. It's just like you go somewhere to some nice place and you said, yeah, I went there to this very nice place. Did you remember how you went there? No, I can't remember. I don't know which bus did I take. Don't know how I drive. It's just like we have this problem with GPS these days. You know. How do you drive there? I go there regularly. How do you drive there? I don't know, because I use GPS every time. You know, some people, they use GPS so much that actually most of us use GPS so much that sometimes even the basic places where you go too often, you don't know the route anymore. So sometimes meditation can be like that. We focus so much on the result that we forgot how we got there. Sometimes that's good to remind ourselves of. You know, we just were still and happy. You weren't looking for anything. Whatever experience we had of feeling connected with the center, we just stick with that, and started with that. And then after we felt very happy, satisfied. That's it. Yeah. Just write that down. Don't trust GPS. It's actually a story about one layperson in the time of the Buddha. His name was Anathapindika. Anathapindika. And Anathapindika was a person who was very inspired to hear that the Buddha had come close to his hometown, close to the town that he was living, and he wanted to visit the Buddha. He was so interested that he even left from the early morning to visit the Buddha. But then to visit him, he had to cross a forest which was very dangerous. And many times, you know, in those days there were many criminals, many bandits hidden in the forest. Many times a rich person like him, he was quite rich, he thought maybe I will be in danger, and he wanted to go back many times. And then finally he decided, there was like a thought that he had. It's even said that there was a spirit in the forest that gave him that thought, that told him that. Every little step is very important. Every little step is very important. And there was the spirit in the forest, and he said, 100,000 elephants, 100,000 horses, 100,000 mule-drawn, how do you say that? Mule-drawn?
Yes.
Mule-drawn chariots, 100,000 maidens, adorned with jewelry and earrings, are not worth a 60th part of a single step forward. Go forward, householder, go forward. Going forward is better for you, not turning back again. This is a symbolical story in many ways. It could have happened really like that, but it's also very powerful and symbolical in the sense that sometimes just going through that forest to reach the Buddha, whether we talk about the Buddha outside of us or the Buddha within, we need to sometimes recognize that every little step is worth a lot. To go through the forest to reach brightness or to reach a good experience within, we need to give importance. We need to recognize every little step forward. Or just like the story which they say that if you plant Chinese bamboo, if you plant it, then when you plant it, there won't be anything coming out of the ground, anything growing for a long time. But then after a while it suddenly starts growing, and it grows very high. Because of the nature of Chinese bamboo is that it's a very high form of bamboo, maybe 30 feet high, but it needs a lot of roots. So at the time when you thought this Chinese bamboo isn't growing at all, I think I better quit giving it any water, quit taking care of it, then it won't grow. But once we realize, oh, it's just building the roots, building the foundation, but we can't see that, then if we are patient, then finally it will grow 30 meters high. In the same way, it's with meditation and in our life in general. Recognizing progress, recognizing our development is therefore some skill we can learn by writing, by keeping a journal or keeping a diary. So if you have not kept a meditation journal yet, try to write down your experience now and then. You'll find it help you. And you might even, if you like this, you might even want to try keeping a diary in your daily life. You might find it helps you. It doesn't always have to be an accurate report of what you're doing in every moment of your life. It can be just some things you've learned. Today this or that happened. And I really had some insight about that when you were writing that down. Some of the greatest geniuses that we recognize most in the history of mankind were actually very good diary writers, like Leonardo da Vinci and many writers, well-known writers and scientists, were very good diary writers. It will also be something you can later on give to to the people who come later to learn about life, to learn about meditation. This will be a sort of treasure for them they can learn about. This will be a source of information for them, a source of wisdom. Okay, so that is all I would like to talk about today. And let's just meditate a bit more for the morning.